When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode. Welcome back, folks. Mark Ludlow with the Fearless Mindset Podcast. We're going to wrap up this talk with Tim Wenzel here. We're here in the studio in Irvine, California, giving you guys the real in-studio experience. Tim's in choir mode right now, folks.
I am. I'm singing.
He's having backflashes being in high school choir and
Show choir, baby.
show choir. He's got many talents that you don't know
Should
about.
have brought the sequin. Bow tie, cummerbund.
There you go.
I get the chicks.
Yep, that's why we go to choir. The chicks were all there.
Right.
Get girlfriends. Get dates for
Anyways,
prom.
I'm married. New topic.
New topic. Don't want to piss off the wife.
Yeah, so
We're talking about your conferences and appearances and speaking engagements and
basically up until COVID, right?
COVID.
So like during that period, I was on the ISC West Education Advisory Board. So we were the ones looking at the topics being submitted, grading them, and choosing who would actually be presenting, which was a really educational experience. Understand how that all comes together. But I wasn't really talking about anything controversial, super sensitive, or way off the beaten path at this point in time. I mean, a lot of the ideas that we were putting out there were different. People hadn't heard them, but they made sense. And it wasn't until COVID happened that I really started to come into my own. And here's the interesting thing. So to become a thought leader in the security industry, without COVID, probably wouldn't happen.
So your thing wouldn't, the kindness game, and you and Lee wouldn't have connected. The
Didn't even
speaking
know
circuit.
Lee, except
Wow.
for COVID.
Wow.
And then the other thing is, to become where I am now this year, that all happened in 2023. It wouldn't have happened had I not been laid off by Facebook.
That's wild.
And so we're going to kind of tell like the last part of this story now and get into like how I made the jump from just being a normal industry speaker to thought leader, which just still
Weird.
sounds douchey. I'm sorry.
You don't like it?
It's weird.
What would you like to be considered as?
I don't mind being considered a thought leader. It's just when I say it,
It's just odd.
it sounds weird.
Does it sound like braggadocious almost when you say it?
It sounds douchey.
Douchey?
You know, it's just
Okay.
like, oh, I'm like this person like way up here, and I just don't feel like I'm way up there. But
Because you have that servant's heart. That's why.
I appreciate that. But I will say that from this point in time that we're talking about to today,
Right.
when I say something on a podcast, when I say something at a conference, when I put out my own thought,
Right.
people used to say like, oh, that's a really cool idea. I'll think about it. And now people just grab it and say, Tim says that we should be thinking like this. How do we do that? And so that's why I don't really mind being called a thought leader anymore, because it's to the point where when I talk about something and I say, hey, this is how we should be doing it.
Right.
We should get away from this legacy advice, this legacy mindset. People say, okay. There's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. When people give your words weight and they say, okay, you know what? We're going to start contemplating how to make this work because we trust that brand that is Tim Wenzel. That's...
Did you ever think of yourself as a brand?
Yes. Because coming into this new industry, you have to create that reputation. So I
Brand management.
tried to craft that experience early.
Yeah, was that the kindness games or was that Tim Wenzel, the name?
No, that was Tim Wenzel. That was trying to be reliable. Somebody who, if you needed someone for an EP detail, you would call Tim up because he's easy to work with, reliable, all that stuff. When I started talking about true leadership, like how to be who you are in all dynamics, in all environments, that was something different that I was branding to myself for a while. My LinkedIn tagline said true leadership on it.
Okay.
I also went through a phase, probably this phase that we're talking about right now. You touched my knee. I liked it.
Yeah, we have to sit really close, folks, because
Really close.
the camera can only get this much of us. And so his knee is like 3 inches from my stool.
Lotion your hands. They're very soft. But anyways, but then, probably this point in time, I actually my LinkedIn URL still is relevant perception. I just haven't changed it because
you should change it.
And I was going to start. I was transitioning from true leadership to relevant perception. I was basically talking about how to bring our perception into relevancy within the proper era that we're in.
The era is changing,
but also the environments, right? Because you can be doing the same thing in different environments and you'll lose relevance if you try to do it the exact same way over and over, which is where we as the security industry, we in trouble.
right?
So I've always had not out with the old, appreciate the old, but let's not do it the same way just for the heck of doing it the same way. Let's do it smarter. Let's be thoughtful. Be thoughtful with leadership, thoughtful with security.
Yeah.
Put it back in my mouth.
I love editing. Editing team, they'll know to splice this out.
All right.
All right. So yeah, it's new era, new thought, new generation, new needs,
New problems.
new problems. I mean, we have a whole new world we're living in from a year, 2 years ago. We have the elections coming up. We have things going on over in Europe, and we have all kinds of craziness. But what's amazing to me is social media. There's good and bad. There's good and bad with social media, but the voices, if it wasn't for social media, you wouldn't have the platform.
Right.
You wouldn't have the voice. If it wasn't for podcasting, we wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here.
Right.
We would never have met. And
True.
I took the leap of faith with my podcast going, what am I doing? This is stupid. I'm going to have so many haters after this year. But you know what?
Who cares?
It molded me and helped me find an identity that I didn't even know existed.
Right.
Like you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that thing was there. I had no clue. And people come in to me and goes, oh my God, I love that talk with so-and-so. It really changed my perspective. Wow. Hallelujah. What a win.
Absolutely. So 2019, GSX happens in Chicago. And I was there with a bunch of people. And Brittany Golly hosted a breakfast. She invited a bunch of like-minded people. We came and, we just complained about the industry.
Okay, fair enough.
The security industry in general. So now, in this point in time, I'm less in executive protection. Actually, 2017 is a good demarcation point from Tim being primarily an EP to Tim tangentially.
Good word.
I said it right.
Being
an EP, but I was moving towards the broader security industry.
Do you like this part?
Yeah. I like the broader industry. It's bigger problems. You're dealing with the enterprise. Like now, I just deal with the C-suites of
That's it.
Of Fortune 100 companies. It's all I do is talk to executives. Really, I mean,
It's a different mindset, different mentality, in communication style.
Yeah, and that's where, if you're going to actually, might be breaking news. I haven't even decided. I was just thinking about it this week.
Breaking news, folks.
So this year in Security Journal Americas, I'm doing the Insecurity series. next year, I think I am going to talk about, so you got that seat at the table.
Ooh, that's a good one. Good talk.
Like,
Table
what
talk,
should you do with
conversation.
it? Right. And like, don't screw that up. Because really, you do have to be a certain amount of thought leader, a certain amount of salesman, and a certain amount of I don't know, I had another good word there, visionary,
Think outside the box.
to be talking to legitimate Fortune 100 executives.
They have a different language they talk versus the EP industry. They talk differently.
Actually, the international language of business is risk. If you
Interesting.
really understand how to discuss risk
Yeah.
within and without your context,
Yeah.
you can have any business conversation in a boardroom. That's really all it comes down
Risk.
to. Understand their perspective, understand your perspective, understand the gaps and how to address each other's risks and
Right.
concerns. So 2019, we're all complaining at Breakfast with Brittany. That's what we dubbed it.
Brittany's going to be on next Monday, by the way.
Really? Lucky
Hello,
you.
Brittany. Coming
Lucky
on.
you. She's a bomb digger. She's just in Panama with me and Lee.
I know.
Yeah, it was sick.
I had to reschedule on her 3 times. Sorry, Brittany.
You flew out here just for me.
I did.
Guess we see who's important.
Brittany, you're coming on next.
So anyways, we decided as a group, you know what? We have good ideas.
Yeah,
And this industry is old and stale.
it is still an old.
And
That's what I'm hearing from all the younger
time.
generation. They're just sick of it.
It's time to push aside the old. Not the old, the legacy mindsets.
I think it's time. That's what I'm hearing from the
The
ground.
things that have been since we can't remember when
Yeah.
they weren't,
Right,
they should be done. Or they should at least be thoughtfully dissected
right.
for relevance and then reconstructed in a way that's meaningful and has a transparent value proposition to both the client of whatever security methodology and the practitioner who's doing it. Like, this makes sense to everybody.
Sure, absolutely.
The security industry is really bad about relevance.
It is.
They are afraid. The insecurity and security is pervasive. They're afraid to change anything, to try anything new.
And
So
that's what I'm hearing from many people. Either they're in the field, you're their voice basically. You're the loudspeaker. They wish they had it because they're sick and tired of being sick and tired of the same old thing.
that's cool. That's cool. That people
That's what I'm
can
hearing.
hear what I put out there and say, I see myself in that. And he's laying out a path that we can walk.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You know, and that's probably what differentiates me from a lot of thought leaders in the industry.
Right.
Is I'm just trying to help everybody see, understand, and develop a thought process. Where you go from there has nothing to do with me.
You just give them the tools.
I don't want you to have the Tim Wenzel method. I don't want you to have to tell me like, oh, you're the reason. Like, I don't care. I just want to enable and elevate everyone around me.
Also in the hall that you got accepted to speak somewhere.
Save that for later.
Okay,
Let's
we'll keep that
end
quiet.
on that note.
We'll keep that quiet.
Let's end on that note. That's going to be a good note to end on.
Yeah. Also for my company, we're I just passed my test in an exam in Texas.
So
Going
you're
through the
licensed in
insurance process.
Texas.
We'll be licensed here in a few weeks in Texas, folks. And we're in the process of doing the same thing in Tennessee.
Awesome.
And next is going to be Arizona and Florida. So we're coming.
Down
Hey.
the way.
Just supporting veteran. If I was told by one veteran in Texas that I actually saved his life from committing suicide.
Wow.
And I heard that about 6 months ago. I had lunch with him. He goes, did you know? No, I did not. You gave me that call. You put me to work, and I was really considering ending it.
Powerful.
I'm like, oh, what do you say to that?
What was it that you did or said that made the difference? Do you know?
Just gave him a job, gave him purpose, gave him a why. Dealing with PTSD from Iraq, and he said, dude, your phone call put me to work. I had purpose again. But I was that, a couple of days later, if I didn't have work, I killed myself. I'm like, okay.
And what's the difference between your company, working for your company, and others? And not that I'm trying to
Sure.
put other people down or whatever, but I know you personally,
Absolutely.
right? Like, we talk quite a bit.
Right.
We're not just conference buddies.
Conference.
And like, you're a joyful person.
I try to be.
Yeah. I mean, and you embrace the struggle, the right types of struggles, in my opinion.
Right.
Does that translate into the experience people get working for your company?
Yeah, they get to know me, my inner circle. They get to know me, and then you have to develop that trust. But my thing is take care of the troops. It's the Marine Corps mentality or the Army mentality. Take care of the guys on the ground. You don't take care of the agents. I don't want to say guys, be girls and guys in this industry. You got to take care of them. If you take care of them, they'll take care of you. It's just how it works. Same thing in battle. When you're in battle, let the lower enlistees go to eat, and just I use the same methodology of the military I do in my business, but without the shouting and whatever. It doesn't work in leadership.
At the sand pit.
No sand pit needed. But I think also being a veteran-owned company, it helps. And, I believe in taking care of our people. And, they're hurting. They reach out and people say, hey, I'm hurt. A lot of these folks, they live paycheck to paycheck.
Tough.
And it's gig work.
They're trying to 2 weeks a month, right?
Yeah.
If I can make 2 weeks a month, I'll be all right.
They're on a detail for a royal family from somewhere in the Middle East. And those folks expect you to work 7 days a week for almost 3 to 4 months without a break. They expect that. What about labor laws? You're working with a dignitary from overseas, so I don't know. You talk to your state people about that. But that's what I see, and my passion now is to blow this, not blow this thing up, but grow this thing up to where if I can save more lives, it's worth it. I'm doing it for the people. I'm doing it.
Awesome.
Put food on the table. What I enjoy is watching the young men and women in the business find their identity, like what we did during COVID, and watch them go, "Oh, I can do this," and they run. You're like, "Wow, that is rewarding to me." Watching them grow, blossom, explode in the industry, that brings me joy.
Awesome.
I mean, you and I, we've got the T-shirt, we've done the thing, we've done the details. It's just, I'm like, who was it? Oh, yeah, that's nice. Yep. I just don't. I get more joy watching people succeed than anything else.
Awesome, because there's a lot of people in this industry that do not get any joy from watching anyone else other than them succeed.
Yeah, it's like life's too short,
or life's too long. Everybody says life is short, but man, I've had some long stretches of life to where I'm like, man, this can be over immediately, and I wouldn't mind. Like life is too long for all this bull crap.
But when you lose two parents in the span of 5 years, it gives you a new set of eyeballs. And my perspective on business and life has totally changed after losing my dad to brain cancer, which is why the podcast is called The Fearless Mindset, because he was fearless till his last breath he took before going on to the next life. And just watching that transformation and seeing how he dealt with people, even though he had days left, he didn't change a thing. He didn't change the way he treated people. He never complained once about, I have cancer and I'm dying. And so that perspective, on life, I just have different perspective on how I do business.
There we go. Put the Pepsi Zero bottle next to the phone.
Zero sugar, right? But yeah, it's been. I mean, you were listening to the podcast where you were kind of getting down and dirty to where the rubber meets the road and what our why is. Explain that, what our why is and what we do.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm glad you had that experience. That's not a lot of people have that experience to where they've been involved in a life changed or a crisis averted, a personal crisis averted, right?
Yeah, he said, yeah, if you didn't call me, I would have taken my own life. I'm like, it just like, whoa. I saved his life by giving him a job? Really?
Yeah, and I've had similar sentiment from a lot of the things that I talk about, and people like changed my mind, changed the entire way I think about things. And, we talk a lot about depression and mental health issues, right?
It's real.
And we have had people in the kindness games. I mean, if you haven't read the book, there's stories in the book about people who are contemplating suicide and got involved with our movement, and it changed everything for them. So.
That's powerful.
So yeah, 2019, GSX, Breakfast at Brittany's, and then we jumped right into the first half of 2020. We were talking with the group, okay, we're all prolific speakers at this point, so we're all going to weave this message, this thread. We were talking with industry leaders, hey, I understand that you or the organization or whatever it is has this vision for the industry. We have a different vision for the industry. That's not necessarily one or the other. They complement each other.
Right.
So how can we work together to make fast progress, to really advance the industry quickly? And, you know, same old, you're crazy. You don't know the industry. You have no idea what's going on in security. Leave the big boy decisions to us.
Oh, threat.
Okay.
A perceived threat.
Yeah, or I don't know. Probably a perceived threat. Also, just a drastically new vision that probably did not line up with their paradigm, to be honest. So
Their paradigm. Their
COVID
reality.
happens.
Mm-hmm.
All the conferences get canceled.
Oh, yeah.
And all of our speaking stuff was gone. And there was a complete thought leadership vacuum in the security industry, except for the Chucks. Chucks were putting on their day-long, virtual conferences. They were pathfinders there, man. They were like, hey, we're going to do some stuff. And that was fun to watch. But our group, we started talking about doing podcasts. Let's get on there and because we don't have to get on anybody else's agenda. This is our agenda. So we can talk about whatever it is we think is important, and there's really nobody to tell us we're wrong.
Right.
So we started GSD talks and talking about where the industry was and where it needs to head and how we could burn that path as fast as possible, accelerate the advancement of the industry. That's what we were talking about. Then we started talking about GSD fails, bringing people on to talk about life fails, life tragedies, career fails, and what they learned from them and how they can move forward and what they've learned through failure and why we've learned to embrace failure as a way to make progress fast.
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff started happening. And then some of the people that we were talking about midway through the year who said that we didn't know what we were talking about, they started coming back around like, hey, can we partner with you? And we said, no. We're good.
A little late.
We're doing it.
And
there was a 6-month period of time in 2020 to where our voice was leading the entire security industry. Anybody that was trying to consume new ideas, we were the only voices out there talking about this. And this is where I met Lee. Mm-hmm. And then everybody knows in September of 2020, I started getting depressed. The Kindness Games was born. Literally, we wrote a book about it. So we're not going to recap it here.
Right.
But so in that 2018, 2019 timeframe in my job at Facebook, I had reached the point where I had taken off the cares of the world. I no longer cared what you thought of me, if you thought my idea was good, if you thought it was bad, because my track record was becoming so irreputable with the quality of the projects we were turning out, the programs we were turning out, the results that we were turning out, and the people that were on my teams. I had engineers who were working Facebook corporate network. So what does it take to keep this entire company, this entire platform up and running? Who we would do work with in the security perspective, and they would be like, hey, can I get a job on your team?
Cool.
Like, what? No, you're like a freaking network engineer. Like, what are you going to do? They're like, the stuff you do is amazing, is so cool.
Wow.
And I just want to work for you. Like, you guys have the most fun. There's a lot of people having fun at Facebook. I have never seen a team have so much unbridled fun and joy with the boss in the room.
Yeah.
With the boss out of the room.
Right.
You guys are just having so much fun doing such meaningful work. And it actually got to the point where as teams wanted to work with us or we started to get involved in bigger projects, mm-hmm. I was actually getting to the point where I'd be like, hey, they'd be like, hey, you're going to work with these people. And I'd go offline and I'd be like, hey, we're not going to work with that team. Why? What's the problem? Well, they're just not fun. And it wasn't about like, we're fun, they're not. they brought that insecurity and security, that anxiety, right? Whatever leadership team dynamic that was going on there was tight and constricted and a downer. And so I got to the point where I could shield my team from having to interact with those other teams. I would have these conversations with leaders, be like, hey, it's nothing personal. I just can't have my high performing team exposed to your team dynamic. It will hurt my people, and they trust me.
Wow.
And so that 2018, 2019 timeframe, I had completely just stopped caring what people thought. I was doing my thing. I was forging my path. I was burning things down, man. Like we were doing things that, like, I was talking to my team, like, hey, what if it worked like this? How would that work? We would brainstorm it. And then we would do something a way that had never been done. And it would work because we were all in, and we were all just innovating within the security industry. So by the time COVID happened, the kindness game started, and I started to tell some of the darker stories, started to talk about my, depression. My first bout of depression happened while I was on my second travel quarantine, stuck in a hotel room for another 2 weeks. Got myself out of that. And by the time I got home and was feeling better, freaking father-in-law was finally dying from kidney failure because he had a transplant scheduled for early 2020, but it was elective, right? He got canceled. And by the time they were starting to open back up, he was too sick. And so I'm just getting over my first bout of depression. And now my last dad is passing away because my real dad passed away in 2018,
Whoa.
And so
That's
I'm dealing with that. And so I just started having all of these conversations and getting on podcasts, and Lee was a huge enabler and a huge sounding board. And he is just as open to being vulnerable and being real. And so throughout 2020, 2021, we just started leading and having super raw conversations. Pelham Rowe, still to this day, he does the podcast with us, The Human Side of Security, which was literally just focused on, we're going to talk about the human issues that the security industry is afraid of or will not discuss or is not addressing well.
Great. It needs to be done.
We're going to, pull the cloak away, expose the wizard, and we're going to do all this stuff.
Yeah, finally been a great platform in getting you guys out there and just making people think differently.
And people didn't all like it.
I can imagine.
We had a lot of haters. There's a lot of people who are personal friends of mine who are like, dude, what are you doing? Like, better. You spent your 20s in Iraq. You've been in some of the toughest situations. You have 4 or 5 international incidents to your name that you've been involved in. Like, people have watched you or something you're involved with on the news.
Wow.
How can you say we can be kind to everyone?
How did that strike you?
As fear.
Wow.
And I knew it well. It's that insecurity and security. And it wasn't personal. I was like, hey, I get it, man. Yeah. This is not for everyone. And they're like, well, I'm not watching, which is funny because they were watching. That's why they wouldn't be so upset about it, right?
Yeah.
But as this story goes throughout 2021, so I have a global remit at my role at Facebook during this time. I work with every region of the world.
Wow.
And I'm starting to jump on meetings with people I haven't seen now in like a year.
Sure.
And I'm having, these big meetings, and at the end of the meetings, they're like, oh, what was that thing that you said the other day? And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, no, pull it up. And they're starting to share my videos like on the conference call at the end of the meeting and just like cracking up, like, this crazy stuff that you said. And I was like, what? So many people consuming the content I was putting out never once liked it or reacted to it, never left a comment, never did a share. No interaction, no fingerprints to ever know that they were there, but it was changing people's lives. Some people, they were like, I've rethought everything. Some people, I was in a dark place and now I'm not. And some people is like, dude, this is just hilarious. Like, you're a funny guy.
Sure.
And you're ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And every day I find something that you put out so that I can laugh.
Joy, humor.
And so
comedy.
One side of things, you have people that are like supporting you. They're like, yeah, this is awesome. This is what we need. Great. You need that fuel. Then you have people that you know and love who are like, this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to screw up your career. What are people going to think in 2 years, 3 years when COVID's not a thing anymore, right? And then you have multitudes of people who you would never know are paying attention and consuming what you're consuming or what you're putting out there.
That's true. Good point. There's probably millions out there.
And they're joyfully consuming it. And for some of them, it's changing how they think and do business.
Would you say your coping, is it faith-based, spiritual-based, or is it
for sure.
Okay, faith-based.
So, I mean, I grew up in a Christian family. My parents had us in church a couple days a week. I've always known, I've always been a Christian and everything like that. And even since I was a kid, and even going overseas, with the invasion of Iraq, I was to a point, there was fear. You can't not go into
That's natural.
a situation like that you've never been in without fear.
Human. Yeah, it's human nature.
But I was completely fine with dying.
Really?
Like,
Yeah.
I was okay should that happen. I wasn't seeking it. But the uncertainty of what comes next was never there for me. And then all of those years, because, I went back as a contractor, I spent my 20s in and around Iraq, either there or preparing to go back or just coming home. And I mean, to be honest, I just saw miracles.
Interesting.
Like going on, like crazy things.
Stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, just so many experiences that other people had, that I had, that you hear about. And you have like very serious people who a lot of them have that insecurity. And so they're not putting themselves in vulnerable positions.
Right.
And you broach a topic and it stops them in their tracks. And they're like, can I share something with you? And they share an impossible thing with you. And it can't not be true because they wouldn't open up themselves to vulnerability like that.
Wow.
So yeah, no, I mean, definitely my Christian worldview has shaped how I've done things, for most of my life.
So when you go into battle, go into war, what was your thought? Like, if I get shot today and killed, what's your thought thinking? Like, what's going on in there?
Honestly, I never worried about it.
Didn't even think about it.
I actually would hope that if I got shot, I got killed because I don't want to suffer.
You don't want to suffer
because I'm medic. I was a medic, so I was
okay.
elbow deep in other people's trauma all the time, right?
Got it.
I mean, whether it happen out on mission or we get called to the aid station because people are being brought in. I've got 2 mass casualty incidents that I was a part of. I just didn't want to suffer.
So your survival out there is basically from childhood roots, foundation, Christian faith, church, Sunday school, whatever.
Yeah, and understanding that there's a better way to deal with people and interact with your environment and society that people appreciate, that serves them well, that will come back to you.
Is that where the servant leadership comes from you?
Yeah, I don't know. I probably not so much that, and just like I don't like it when people are dicks.
I don't either.
So like
I hate
like
jerks.
actually the book, The Kindness Games, right? I wanted to name it like #Don't Be a Dick, but they wouldn't let me. I was like, this really sums it up, right? But I just like it. I don't like it when people are unreasonably negative, and we all go through phases, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm like this almost all the time. I have my days where I'm unbearable.
Absolutely. Oh, really?
I have days when my wife hates me. I have days when my friends are like, dude, I can't be around you right now.
Okay.
Right?
You're just being real.
We all go through this, right?
And when you're going through the depression stage, was it suicidal, PTSD? What was that like for the veteran listening to us right now?
Yeah, it wasn't suicidal. It was just dark. And I remember, that hotel room door closing, and I've got 2 weeks here again. And like, wow, I have work I need to do. I need to wake up every day. Like, and then when I get out of this hotel room, like, I'm here because there's an executive on this island that I need to be doing stuff with, right?
Right.
Like, I need to come out of this ready to perform.
Military mode.
And right now, like I'm feeling like I just like might like slide out of the door like a puddle.
Wow.
You know, just destroyed by, because I mean it's just negativity on the TV. It didn't matter where you turn, people were hating other people, and they're like, if you look like this, if you think like this,
Yeah.
then these people hate you, and you have to hate them. And yeah, that's why I went the kindness gains route, because I needed that positivity, and I needed to put something in the world to counter program the negativity that was
Smart. Smart. Were you dealing with the substance abuse, alcohol, or anything like that at all? Or?
No, I don't drink.
Wow. Okay.
I don't take
Interesting.
medication
That's
except for caffeine.
caffeine.
I'm an ultra
Caffeine,
caffeinator.
coffee.
That's right.
Starbucks. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Everybody has their foundation. I think most people have foundations out there, whether they're Catholic, Mormon, whatever faith they have. That is truly becomes your core value, how you respond to crisis and chaos in life.
You're not wrong. And that's where early in my career, when I would see this insecurity around clients, and it's like, if you're protecting someone who's in the middle of stress or in the middle of a storm, we're supposed to be the calm in that storm.
Eye of the storm.
And yet we're surrounding them with more anxiety and more upheaval, which is why the clients don't want to talk to you.
Right.
Or it's why they always have negative feedback for you. We're always bringing this toxic team dynamic close to them, which is why we get pushed away. There's so much around us. Honestly, if you're going to hire me when you're going through your worst, whether it's you personally or your company, then I need to bring the calm.
Right.
Like when I show up, people need to be like, oh, thank God. Now things are going to start getting better.
Right. Absolutely.
And that, I mean, that's a very Christian idea.
Absolutely.
But you know, when I'm in the middle of crisis, that is when I'm my most calm. That's when I'm my most excited. I mean, so that's where I thrive.
Wow. How we're all made up differently psychologically.